Hello and welcome back to the stars, everybody. Welcome back to Starfield, where today we are going to be doing another tier list of all of the weapons in Starfield. This is actually going to be the final tier list, at least as of right now, because we don't have any new weapons on the horizon. Maybe we will with DLCs, and if you've been following along with my recent build guide videos, then I've been showing how I enjoy playing each of these and where I'd put them, so you're probably already aware of where all these are going if you have watched all those. However, if you haven't, this will be me giving my thoughts on each of these weapons and then putting them somewhere in our tier list. As you can see, we have kind of a standard tier list. D tier is for weapons that just aren't that strong. C tier is fine. B tier is pretty good. A tier is really good. S tier is fantastic, and then the S plus tier is pretty much just the busted tier or the best in slot tier, where there is some weapons that are really strong. We'll talk about them as we go. The very first thing that we got here is the Kraken submachine gun. This is technically considered a pistol. This is one of the early guns that you're going to be finding. This is a gun that a lot of pirates have. It shoots a 6.5. It and the Maelstrom are the only two that actually fire this. Its mods are okay. We'll talk about that, I guess, when we get to the modded version. For the base stats of this one, it tends to do low damage. It has a high rate of fire. It doesn't have a huge magazine. It's okay early on, but it's probably one of the weaker weapons, so the Kraken is going to go right into D tier. For the modded version of it, though, it does get better. Mods help this one out quite a bit. You can put Gutbuster rounds into this, and they deal pretty good damage then. They actually are doing, like, explosive damage. Ammo is super cheap and common for this. It's super easy to find these, so you can probably find some legendary versions and get some good mods on it, or some legendary effects on it. Like if you can get an extended mag for this, it's really nice. If you can get things like shattering, it's really good too, or elemental or anything like that where you can put multiple effects on there. This one is better, and this one would probably go up into C tier. It's still not going to be an amazing weapon. At least it has an advanced version, which not every weapon does. Getting to this, it makes a good little personal handgun if you want to be using it in that role. And if you want something that is actually fully auto. Full auto in this game, though, is kind of a detriment to your weapons, because full auto weapons always do less damage than the semi-automatic versions of them, or even burst fire versions in most cases, with like very few exceptions. So you don't really usually want full auto guns. It's not bad to have them though, especially if you have like wrist issues or finger issues or whatever it might be, to where you just don't want to be tap firing every single shot. Then full auto weapons become a whole lot better for you, because you just don't need to be using them as much. But the full auto Kraken is fine. You can still, like, basically with everything in this game, you can walk through the whole game just using any of these weapons. There's not too many weapons that I would consider that to be a huge challenge with. I've only played Starfield on the very hard difficulty, and even then it's still pretty easy. Next we got the Maelstrom. Maelstrom's better than the Kraken. It fires the same round. It's a 6.5. It's probably one of the first guns that you're going to find. It can be full auto or semi-auto. Semi-auto is going to get you more damage. Pirates have this. You're going to find it all over the place, so finding legendary versions of Maelstroms is super common, which is good. You can find some decent effects on them. They are one of the better early game weapons, I would say, and probably the first rifle that you're going to get your hands on, so I'm going to put this one up into C tier. It does fall off later, though. It doesn't really scale all that well, even once you get up to the advanced versions of it. It's still good enough for most cases, but not as strong as other weapons. Then we have two versions of this that I put on here. We have a semi-auto version and a full auto modded version. Semi-auto is the better of the two. This will get you more damage. You can throw a scope on this. You can throw a suppressor on this. Scopes and suppressors are generally things that you want to throw on any weapon that you can, because you just get more damage from them thanks to the sniper perk and thanks to the sneak perk. So that's really good. It being a rifle is good too, because then it counts towards other things. Marksman also counts if you have a semi-auto gun, so that's nice. And like we said, you get more damage with semi-auto than you do with full auto. Ammo's super common. You can put Gutbuster rounds into this and have explosive rounds. It has a big enough magazine in it. Semi-auto is actually going to go up into B tier. It's pretty decent. It's a decent all-around gun if you want to carry it around. Still not going to outcompete some of the weapons that we've got on this tier list, but good enough. Full auto is weaker. Full auto is going to go to C tier. You just don't do as much damage. You can have decent damage per second, and again, with like legendary mods, this one can be pretty nice. Like if you get an extended mag one, if you get a shattering one, if you get an elemental one, and then you could also throw Gutbuster rounds into this, or you could just throw the big drum on it and just be firing this like crazy at crowds of enemies, and it can actually do really well then. But just for a base, like, advanced version of the Maelstrom that is full auto, it's decent. It's still okay. Then we've got the Solstice Pistol, which is kind of disappointing. This is one of the very first energy weapons that you're going to get, and it's probably going to be, like, your primary energy weapon for a while. This one does go up to an advanced version, which is nice. It's okay all the way around at everything. Mods are fine on it. It does have a decent amount of ammo. It does have a cool reload. I like the reload on this weapon quite a bit. It usually comes modded out too, which is kind of nice. The ammo is super common and it doesn't have any competition for its ammo. You can also buy it from basically any vendor that you see. All of those are pretty good. This is going to be like your first regular energy weapon handgun, but it's probably going to get replaced by the other energy weapon handguns. And this one would be like C tier for me. The modded version is kind of the same. Mods don't change this one up that much. You can put like ignition beams or stealth beams on this and have a little bit of a different gun, but it's still kind of a pistol that has all the same faults that the other one does, where it's okay at everything. It doesn't have a super high rate of fire. It's okay on mag size. It's okay on damage. It's okay on range. It actually has better range than most of the other handguns. So that is kind of good. It doesn't have the most range out of any of the handguns, but it doesn't scale amazing. So I'd also put this one into C tier. It's fine enough as well. And then we've got the arc welder, which I don't even have a modded version of it because I think the mods on it are so neglectable that I think it's like a laser sight. I think that's the one thing that you can put on this as a mod. This is a heavy weapon or a tool, so it technically counts for a bonus on like the magazines that get you tool damage, but that's not necessarily a good thing because it's like 1 or 2% more damage. This one has pretty decent range, but it is a connected beam, so it does have limited range. This one zaps enemies nearby. It can arc lightning to other nearby enemies. You can light enemies on fire with this. This is one of the early game heavy weapons that you can get, which is kind of cool for it. Takes the same ammo as like the Equinox and the Orion, which isn't really that great. It can eat through ammo pretty quickly too. And the arc welder is just like all around kind of disappointing. It's also very heavy. Arc welder is going to go like right into D tier. It's probably the weakest weapon in the entire game in my opinion. Heavy weapons in this game are just not that great to begin with. But this weapon in particular is really not that good, especially if you're just going with an all-weapons build. If you're going specifically with a heavy weapons build, you'll probably use it, but you're probably still then not going to like it. And something like the cutter really outperforms this just because it has infinite ammo, and you get it even earlier, and it's even more common. Then we've got the rivet gun, another heavy weapon. This one does pretty high damage per shot, or at least it says it has pretty high damage. Its damage is honestly not as high as it shows, at least if you're firing it out normally. This is one of the few weapons that you can charge up and fire and deal more damage, as well as it becomes more accurate, and I think the projectile moves a little bit faster once it is charged. That is kind of cool, but using it with charged shots is just very awkward. It has very short range still. The damage is okay then, but it still gets outcompeted by most other weapons by the time you're getting this. This is another tool, so you can find it potentially early on, and other stores might be able to sell it. You can find some legendary versions of this. I don't think I've ever found a legendary arc welder, but I have found legendary rivet guns, which are kind of cool. The auto riveter, though, is just, it's so awkward to use by itself, and I'd put this one into D tier. Modded version is better because you can put the Tesla pylons in it, and that's the thing that actually saves it from being like right into D tier, so this one's going to go to C tier. The Tesla pylons are pretty good because then you basically have an electric grenade launcher with this, where if you hit directly, it does do pretty good damage, but if you hit just anywhere near an enemy, you can still zap them with the lightning from this, and it does set it up on the ground so anything walking around it can still get zapped. Since you can fire this fairly quickly, you don't really need to be using the charge shots then, and you can kill things a little bit quicker with this. It's actually a pretty fun weapon to be using, and it's the only thing that actually uses the rivet rounds, so if you find a bunch of rivets, or if you buy a bunch of rivets, the rivet gun is the only thing that you're going to be able to use with that, and it's actually decent then. It's still not amazing, because it's kind of like a nerfed grenade launcher at that point, but it is a grenade launcher, so it's decent enough, and if you're doing a heavy weapons only playthrough, you might end up using this. Again, you want to mod it though for the Tesla pylons. It has some other mods like a laser and I think like a shielded grip and stuff, which is okay. But the main thing is like those Tesla pylons are actually kind of decent. Then we've got the Old Earth Hunting Rifle, the Vintorez. This one's pretty decent. This one comes with a lot of good things already, and it's actually affected by a lot of perks because this thing already has a scope on it by default and a suppressor on it by default. Those two are huge. So this one is a 20-round semi-automatic rifle that's actually pretty good for hipfire or for ADSing with it. It has fast follow-up shots, it has very long range, it's tied with the longest range out of anything in the game, so damage drop-off isn't that big of a factor. Ammo can be kind of a pain. 9x39 rounds are not the most common thing to find. They're also a little bit expensive if you want to buy a bunch of them. This one does pretty good damage, really good damage per second. 20-round magazine is nice. It doesn't have a whole lot of mods, but that doesn't matter because the things it already has are quite good. Like I said, the suppressor and the scope, so it counts towards the sniper perk, so you get more damage from that. Counts towards the stealth perk, so if you're building that, you get more damage since it has a suppressor. Counts as a rifle, counts as a ballistic weapon, counts towards the marksman skill. This one's actually really good overall. Assuming you can find ammo for it, this one's like an A tier. And the modded version, I would say, is even better, because a lot of the mods don't matter too much for this, but if you put a hair trigger on this and armor-piercing rounds into it, it's actually really, really strong. Armor-piercing rounds just make it super consistent towards like any type of enemy, and the hair trigger makes so it can actually do really fast follow-up shots, which is nice. You don't need to have really like long range with this. The range is fine, so going with high velocity isn't that big of a deal. High powered is good too, but I would say the hair trigger because you can just spam this thing super fast. And this one's going to be our very first S tier weapon. It's really, really good. Speaking of S tier weapons, we have the Big Bang next. And the Big Bang is probably the strongest shotgun in the game. This thing has really high damage. This is a particle weapon. You're probably going to be finding this towards the end of the game. Since this is a particle weapon, it counts for even more perks than it really should, because particle weapons count towards ballistic skills, energy weapon skills, so like the laser skill, and the particle weapon skill, as well as this is a shotgun, so it counts towards the shotgun skill, and it's a semi-automatic weapon, so a marksman skill as well. It's really good. It gets a lot of bonuses from there. This is an 8-round semi-automatic shotgun. Does kind of function a little bit weird, where it loads in cassette tapes for its damage. Has surprisingly long range, even though its range technically isn't very long, but its damage drop-off doesn't matter that much since it has such high base damage. This one is probably one of the strongest weapons in the game overall at kind of everything, and this one's going to go right up into our S tier. The modded version of the Big Bang is even stronger because it has really good mods. Once you put the Annihilator rounds into this, then it has damage over time and damage that can spread to multiple enemies, and it's very likely to trigger because this is a shotgun. You can have even longer range on it, so its damage drop-off doesn't matter that much. Once you have this thing fully modded out and all the perks for it, it will usually one or two shot just about anything in the game. It is really, really strong. And this one's going to go right up into our S plus tier. It is absolutely insane with the amount of stuff that you can kill with it. It kills things super, super quick. Then we have the Beowulf, another really strong weapon. This is our first 7.77mm rifle, or I guess gun in general. And this one is probably the most common ammo that you're going to find. Vendors always have a ton of it. Basically every pirate, mercenary, ecliptic soldier, Varun zealot, anything like that, all have guns like this. Whether it be the Beowulf, the Grendel, miniguns, anything like that. The ammo is super common for it. It has a 30-round magazine. It is a rifle, so that's nice. It's semi-automatic by default, which is fantastic. It's got pretty good iron sights. It has really good mods as well, because you can put armor-piercing rounds into this. You can put a scope on it. You can put a suppressor on it, so it counts all towards bonuses with those skills. Just the standard Beowulf is really good, and I'd put this one up into S tier. This one's really good just because of how common the ammo is and how consistent it is across the board at basically every job. It works very well as a close range rifle because you can spam it really fast. It works really good as a medium range rifle, where then it really excels, and it can still work out to longer range too, where the damage drop-off isn't that bad. The fully modded version is probably the best gun if you're going for price to performance, where the ammo is super common. The gun itself is super common. It basically has no real downside since all the mods are on it are really good. With the weapon being as common as it is, you can find legendary versions of the Beowulf super easy. And if you get one of these with like rapid, extended mag, shattering, basically any bonus effect on this is just going to be good unless you get like Space Adept, which sucks overall. But so long as you don't get that one, it's pretty nice. Or like bashing. Bashing kind of sucks, but at least I would take that over Space Adept. The Beowulf is absolutely crazy. This one's going right up into S plus tier 2. Not necessarily because I would say that it's stronger than something like the Big Bang or even on the same tier. Well, it's on the same tier as the Big Bang, but for different reasons. It is like the best just overall rifle kind of at everything. At least if you want a cheap rifle that can have a bunch of really good mods, and it can also compete with other weapons in terms of the DPS. It's not going to be able to outdamage some of the weapons that are going to be up there, but it's definitely going to outperform most weapons if it's just price to performance or ammo to performance, whatever you want to call it. And then we've got the Breach Shotgun. The Breach is kind of cool. This one does really high damage per shot. It's fairly slow on the rate of fire. It's actually quite slow on the rate of fire. Has surprisingly long range for a shotgun as well, and this is the only shotgun you can really mod into a sniper rifle, funny enough. And these ones you're not going to find super early on, you're going to find them later on into the game. They are pretty expensive, although you can buy one right at the very start that has rapid on it, which is really nice. Rapid is really good for this so that the follow-up shots aren't that bad. This fires the 15x25 shell, which is one of only 2 guns that uses that. And this one's pretty nice overall. I'd say this one's like A tier. Then we've got the modded version of it. The modded version I would say is even better because, again, you can turn this into a sniper rifle and it's actually pretty decent. You put slugs into this, you put a suppressor on it, you put a scope, and then you've got a very condensed shot that moves pretty fast. Scope gives you more damage thanks to sniper, suppressor gives you more damage thanks to stealth. Ammo is super common for it. Breaches actually aren't too hard to find legendary versions either. I found quite a few of them. So getting legendary breaches is definitely doable. Even if you can't, there are some unique ones. Like I said, you can get that one at the very start that's called the Rapid Shot. You buy that in New Atlantis and you got Rapid on it. You don't need anything else. Pretty good gun. I'd put this one up into S tier as well. Then we've got the Bridger, first grenade launcher here. This fires the 40mm round. This is a lever action grenade launcher. Does a lot of damage. It's pretty accurate. It does have a really cool sci-fi look to it. I really enjoyed this one. Damage is pretty high, like you'd expect from a grenade launcher. Reload is pretty slow because you have to reload this one at a time, and it does have a kind of lengthy animation if you need to reload the entire thing of it. You can find this pretty early on though. You can find it like right at the start in Aquila. There's some unique versions that you can find really early on too if you're doing the Ranger quest, or I guess just the main quest. Or if you want to do the UC Vanguard quest, you can find a unique version of it there. That's pretty good too. Bridger's nice, but the ammo is super expensive. It's very hard to find. Merchants don't carry a lot of it. I'd put this one B tier for like the practical use. Modded version is a bit better. You can put an extended barrel on it, which gives it even longer range, and it makes it so you can have even more shots, so it holds 6 rather than 4. You can put a scope on this, funny enough, so it counts as a sniper weapon as well, so you get more damage that way. You can put Hornet's Nest rounds into this, which are like cluster bombs. They go so far, they explode, and then they shotgun out towards enemies. Works really well inside of compounds or in very close to medium range, although you can blow yourself up really easy with it too, so you gotta be careful about that. But outside of that range, it's kind of awkward because the round will only go the distance of your effective range and then it will explode. And that's not really the best. It makes it really difficult to hit enemies at a distance. You kind of have to just rain the shrapnel down on top of them, which kind of works and it looks really cool, but it's just sort of awkward. You can put Tesla rounds into this too, which count basically the same as explosives, but then they linger there and zap everything around them, and that's actually pretty nice. I would put the modded Bridger up into A tier, assuming you can have ammo. This still has the same problem as the non-modded version though, where 40mm grenades are not common at all. They're very rare. Buying them from merchants is kind of a pain because they cost a lot and they just don't usually have very many. There's a couple weapons like that where the ammo is just usually the main issue. So yeah, A tier on a good day, B tier on an average day. And if you're just not finding ammo, like C tier. Magshot's up next, and Magshot is a pretty good handgun. This one is the highest damaging handgun out of any of the handguns, at least shot for shot, not including all the mods that you can put on it. This one does good damage, holds 6 shots, works as like a Magnum, works very similar to like the 44 Magnum in Fallout 4, so pretty good damage and pretty good across the board. It's a nice handgun to use. It's the only gun that fires the ammo that it has, so it's not competing with anything else too. I'd put this one up into S tier. It's pretty nice. Then we got the modded version, which actually doesn't up it that much. You can turn this to be like full auto, and it fires out super fast, but it has such high recoil. It has much higher recoil than it actually shows in the game, because at least if you're ADSing with it, it looks like it's staying fairly on target, but if you just hip fire this, you can actually see the actual pattern of it, and usually it's the first 2 shots go roughly where you're aiming, and then the other 4 shots just go into the ceiling, and it's just not really that good. Unless you're using it at a very close range, if you put it right up into somebody and pull the trigger, yeah, you'll destroy them. This has one of the highest DPSs on any weapon, and if you get the extended mag, it's really good where it has 12 shots. Then the full auto feels kind of valid. Without that, though, I just like the semi-auto version. It's got good range, it's got good damage, it's got pretty good mods. This one's also going to go up into S tier. I don't think it's insane compared to the regular version. The regular version's already really good, but the modded version is also really, really nice and one of the best handguns in the game. Then we got the AK, or the Old Earth Assault Rifle. This one is decent. This one's the only gun that fires the 7.62x39 round. There is no other guns that fire this. This one has pretty good damage per second, has a decent magazine. Feels really weird for an AK though. It has like too high of a rate of fire, or maybe it's too low of a rate of fire. I forget what it is with this. It doesn't feel quite right for an AK. It also feels like it has no recoil too, which is weird. So AK is decent all the way around. You're probably going to find this towards the middle of the game. Finding ammo for it can be sometimes a pain, depends. Merchants tend to sell a decent amount of it, so if you know where to go, it's not too bad and it's not super expensive. So AK is like C tier. It's not bad overall. With the modded version, it gets a little bit better, but not massively better. The old Earth guns generally don't have very many mods on them. The AK is definitely one of them that doesn't get very many mods. The sights on it are fine. Whatever you pick is fine. You can put a suppressor on it, so that's good. Magazines aren't anything crazy. You can put armor-piercing rounds into it, and that's pretty decent. You can't put a stock on this for whatever reason. I don't know why they decided to make the AK so non-customizable. It's so strange because it's an AK. It should have like a million mods, even if you're going off of like the game's lore where Earth was essentially destroyed. It wasn't destroyed quickly though. It was destroyed gradually over time, and you think that there would be tons and tons and tons of part kits just laying around for AKs that you could mod the heck out of this thing, and sadly you can't. So this one's going to go B tier. It's pretty decent if you do mod it out, and if you just want something that you can spray. You also can't turn the semi-auto for some reason. It's full auto only. I don't know why that is either. Like, that's just something bizarre to me. If this thing could have the amount of mods that I would like on it, I think it would be a whole lot better, because then you could put something like a stock on it, put a suppressor on it, put a different magazine on it, make it semi-auto, and put a scope on it, and then it would be pretty decent. It would actually be pretty strong then. It would probably go up to A tier. The best way that I enjoy using it is take the short barrel, give it the drum magazine, and then just have it be a full auto little gun. And it's decent in that role. It's decent for spraying things down, but nothing way crazy. Then we got the old Earth hunting shotgun. This is the pump shotgun, which is very strong. This holds 6 rounds in it. It has a slow rate of fire, but it does really high damage. It has pretty nice sights. You can find these towards the mid-game, and the damage that they do is pretty crazy. It's also got pretty long range as well, even just with the standard buckshot in it. This gun is pretty awesome. I'd put this one up into S tier. It's very nice. The modded version, though, doesn't really change it that much. You can add a couple of things to it. You can change the ammo type to it, but buckshot works pretty well. Slugs are really good in this as well, and flechettes. Flechettes are really nice too. Any of those are fine. You can have either the short barrel or the longer barrel on it. Either one of those is fine. You can put a stock on it to make it a little bit more stable. There's nothing really to increase its rate of fire that much, so a rapid version is kind of nice of this. It does kind of still have a slow reload since you have to load each shell individually, but you can stop the reload whenever you'd like, so that's nice about the pump shotgun. Also going up into S tier. It's really good, but it's not that much better than just the standard pump shotgun. Pacifier's up next. This is the Space Spaz, or at least that's always what I called it. This one is also a 15x25 shotgun shell, so it's the same one that the Breach fires. This one has a much faster rate of fire than the Breach though. It holds a lot of shots, and it's affected by perk magazines. Same with the Breach and a couple other weapons where you can have even more ammo into the magazine thanks to that, which is nice. This one does pretty decent damage, good damage per second. One thing that really bothers me about this gun is that it has the candid iron sights, but you can't use it even if you have like the reflex sight on this, and I don't know why that is. The shotgun's good overall though, so I'd put it B tier. You're gonna find a decent amount of these, and they're just nice to have. The modded version's even better because you can up it quite a bit. You can put a stock on it. You can give it flechettes or slugs in it, which is really good. You can put different sights on it if you want, like the reflex sight's actually pretty decent. You can put a choke on this as well and have decent range. It's all around an upgrade from the shotgun. Still nothing crazy, and I would say the Breach is a bit better than this overall, just because it has more of a niche, and something like the pump shotgun also kind of has more of a niche than this particular weapon, but it's still really good. All the shotguns in this game are really nice. Just depends on what you like and what you're using. This one can carry you through the game, and I used it for quite a while on my first and on my second playthrough since I got them so early on. Then we got the Razorback. This is probably one of the best handguns in the game in my opinion. This is the big magnum in the game. This deals really high damage. It has very long range. It has the longest range out of any of the handguns in the game. It fires the 7.5 round in it, which is the only gun that actually fires that. And this also has incendiary rounds on it because that's how the ammo works, so that's really nice. You can actually find this pretty early on too. There's quite a few places that sell Razorbacks, in Aquila specifically, and if you join the Rangers, you just get a free one that can have mods on it, which is really nice. This one's fantastic. This one's like A tier for me. The unique version's even better, or the modded version's even better, where you can put even more mods on this. You can put a suppressor on it, which is fantastic. You can put a scope on this, and this actually becomes a pretty competent little sniper rifle, or a little pocket sniper. It does weigh a lot for a handgun, but it fits the role of just being a magnum. You can also put a binary trigger on this if you'd like. so that it can shoot quicker. I don't really like the feel of that. And then like the unique version you can buy in a kilo is really good, the Prime, where it has elemental on top of it. Yeah, this one's like right up into S tier. This is one of the best handguns in the game. Then we've got the Regulator. This one's also pretty good. Regulators you can actually find super early on. You can find advanced versions of them very early on if you're looking in the right places. Some of the raider outposts actually have them. They're usually on a table in the back. And if you pick them up, they're going to do a lot of damage even if you're not built for handguns. So they're actually one of the best early game weapons just because of that. This fires the 43 Magnum round or Ultra Mag round, which is not a super uncommon round. It's not a super common round though either. Merchants tend to sell a lot of it. It's not super expensive. This one is actually pretty good if you can find it early on enough. Again, if you can find an advanced version of this, like right at the beginning of the game, this thing's like S+ tier then. If you're not, and you're just like finding regular versions of it, it's probably B tier. It's still an above average handgun kind of at everything. Holds a decent amount of shots, has a fairly fast reload. I kind of like the aesthetics of it. The modded version I would say is even better, because if you do find, again, like an advanced version of it right at the start, you can start throwing mods on it and it will carry you all the way through the game. For mods, it has some decent ones. You can't put a scope on this, sadly, but the iron sights are fine. Reflex sight is a little bit weird and I don't really like it. You can put an extended barrel on this. If you find like a rapid version of this, it's really nice. Or if you find an extended mag version of this, it can be really nice as well. You can also put a binary trigger on this, so it actually shoots really fast and becomes pretty scary at close range if you want to do that. I would say the modded version is A tier overall. Again, if you find an advanced version early on enough into the game, which you absolutely can, there are some places where these are always guaranteed to spawn, then you start modding it because you get your weapon skill right up. This is going to go right up into S+ tier because it is very, very good just because of how easy it is to get basically an endgame gun right at the very start of the game. Then we've got the Shotty. The Shotty is kind of a weird shotgun. It definitely looks odd for a shotgun. This is a spam fire shotgun, which is really fun to spam fire. This one fires the caseless shotgun shells. It's this in the double barrel. This is probably going to be one of the first shotguns that you find. It holds a lot of shots in it and can hold even more shots thanks to the extended mag. I think it has 3 different extended mags on it, where I think it can have like an extended mag, the large extended mag, and the larger extended mag. And it can hold a lot of shots in it. It fires super fast. It looks really derpy when it's fully modded out. It's actually super fun to use. It's just it can go through rounds really, really quick, and you might not have shotgun shells early on in the game, so I'd put this B tier. Really fun for a spam fire weapon though. The modded version's even better, because if it is fully modded and you have like full rate of fire and a large magazine on this, it's really, really fun. You can just spam fire this thing super fast, bully any enemy in the game with it. So long as you have ammo, it's really strong. I'm gonna put this A tier. It's actually really good. Again, if you have the ammo. If you don't have the ammo, then you're just gonna empty out this and feel kind of sad because now you have no more shotgun to shotgun stuff with. Up next is the Tombstone. This is the first of the 11mm rifles. This one's a little bit weird, and it's kind of cursed in its looks. This one holds 20 rounds. It's full auto only, which is strange. It always comes with a scope, which is nice, at least by default. This one, it does pretty decent damage. It's one of the higher damaging 11mm guns. 11mm is one of the more common rounds. It's super cheap to buy. Merchants always have it. It's pretty good for that role. It's a decent overall rifle kind of at everything, but nothing way crazy, so it's going to go into B tier. Modded version's a little bit better because then you can put the extended mag on it and go up to like 36 rounds in it. It can still have the scope. You can put a suppressor on it. Mods are actually pretty decent for this one. It still doesn't go way crazy though. It's one of the better full auto weapons though, in my opinion, so I'd put it up into A tier, and it does get better thanks to the skill magazines. Skill magazines make it so it has a faster reload, and if you stack the perk that also gives you a faster reload, then the mag size isn't such a huge deal with it. I would say it's probably the weakest of the 11mm weapons though, because it is just restricted to full auto, even though the other ones being able to turn semi-auto doesn't necessarily improve them by a massive amount. Then we got the Urban Eagle. This is our other 43 Magnum gun. This one is basically just stronger than the Regulator in most ways, besides potentially rate of fire thanks to the binary trigger that it can have. Other than that, it is just kind of a bonus. It has good damage, it has a decent magazine, it is locked at a certain rate of fire, which kind of sucks. I wish it had a higher rate of fire than it does. Does do decent damage, does have decent range. Overall, it's like another B tier or A tier weapon. Maybe I'd put it actually into B tier. I think on my other tier list I had put it into A tier, but it's just kind of okay when compared to the Regulator. They're both pretty practical and you can kind of interchange them. The modded version is a bit better, where you can actually up this quite a bit because you can put an extended barrel on it, you can put a suppressor on it. You can put a scope on it. It's one of the few handguns that can actually have a scope, and that helps it out a lot because then it counts as a sniper weapon. That's really good. Put in either armor-piercing rounds into this or a bigger magazine into this and put hair trigger on it to where its rate of fire is actually pretty reasonable. And then this does actually jump up a bit, and I would put this into S tier because it's probably one of the more practical handguns. Maybe not as S tier as something like the Magshot, which I would just consider better than this. Then we got the XM2311. This is the future 1911. And this one is one of the two guns that shoots the 45 ACP, which absolutely sucks to find ammo for, because even the most stocked vendors don't have like above 20 rounds for this thing, and I don't know why. It's like the rarest ammo to find in the game. It does do good damage, it does do good damage per second, it fires very fast, which is nice, it has decent sights, it has an okay magazine size too. Overall, the XM2311 is pretty good, I'd put it up into A tier. The modded version's even better. It's one of the few handguns that can also have a scope, so you can get bonus damage thanks to the sniper perk. You can put a suppressor on this. Then you can either throw in armor-piercing rounds so you do a bit more damage, or you can have an extended mag and go up to like 15 shots in this, which is pretty decent. And as long as you have ammo for it, it's probably S tier. It's just that a lot of the time you don't have ammo for it, and you're probably not going to be carrying it around, which kind of sucks. I wish you could use this more often, because practically speaking, this thing's probably like B tier overall at everything, just because the ammo is so terrible. It's just, if you do have ammo, then it's S tier, and we'll consider it that. It's also super rare. You don't find XM2311s like at all. They're just extremely rare to find. I've never found a legendary version of this. I've barely found any rares or epics of it. Although a lot of the rares I have found have had like instigating on them, so they're amazing. But yeah, it's one of the rarest weapons in the game, and I just haven't found very many versions of it. Then we've got the trusty cutter. This is a heavy weapon. This is actually the very first weapon you get in the game. This is a laser cutter that's used for mining. Although it's pretty good for killing things at the very start of the game. It's actually pretty good all throughout the game if you want to build for it. So this has infinite ammo, which is a huge bonus to it. It is kind of heavy, but you only need to carry around one of these, and again, infinite ammo, so that's really, really nice. You can break up rocks with it, which is kind of cool. It's a good weapon to carry around at the start because it doesn't use up any ammo, so it's always something that you can use, especially against aliens early on. It does decent damage, and it can actually do really high damage per second towards high health pool enemies. Because if you have the laser perk maxed out, there's a 5% chance of any sort of laser being able to light targets on fire, and that does percent health damage to their total amount of health. And with this thing hitting super, super fast, it can trigger that multiple times in quick succession and build up the overall fire that it's dealing to enemies, and it will just melt through things like terramorphs. It's probably one of the fastest weapons to kill terramorphs with, which is really cool, but this isn't really that great against heavily armored enemies. Heavily armored enemies are going to ignore a decent amount of the damage. You can still kill them fairly quick. I did a recent run where I did the cutter only on the entire game. Well, not the entire game, all the way through the UC Vanguard quest. And it wasn't that bad. It really wasn't that bad to be killing stuff with it, even on the very hard difficulty. It was still pretty easy. I managed to make a ton of money because I wasn't using anything else and I could just sell all the guns and ammo that I found. And once you build up the laser perk, it's actually really good. So Cutter is going to go B tier. Again, it's really strong for what it is, but it's just... it still has some limitations. It still has a limited range, so you can't be using this at very long range. It doesn't do extremely well against humans, at least at very high levels. Once you're fighting like level 70 to 90 humans, they can shrug off the cutter pretty well and do a lot of damage back to you, so it becomes kind of awkward in that role. But throughout the early, mid-game, and even towards the late game, at least towards alien enemies, this thing is fantastic. So I would always say have the cutter on you. The Drumbeat is up next, which is another 11mm rifle. This one already comes with a drum magazine, which is pretty cool. It's full auto by default, which is okay. It can be semi-auto, which is good, although it doesn't affect it that much, switching between semi-auto and full auto, so you can use it however you'd like. The drum magazine holds 60 rounds in it. It has pretty good sights by default. Overall, it's a pretty decent 11mm gun. Doesn't necessarily do the most amount of damage though, and I'd put it into B tier. Modded version is quite a bit better because you can make this semi-auto then and have more damage. You can switch out the magazines for quite a few different ones, like I think it has depleted uranium rounds, or maybe it's just armor-piercing rounds in it. Either way, that's pretty good. You can put white hot rounds into it too. Any of the mods do cut the magazine from the 60 rounds to the 30 rounds, but that's still more than enough for a semi-auto gun like this. If you're making it full auto in that way, it's going to feel a little bit awkward, so maybe try for an extended mag version of this. These are super common though, mercenaries always have them. so it's not hard to find unique versions of them, and I'd put this one up into A tier. It's another pretty decent weapon all the way around. Then we've got the Grendel. This is probably the most common gun that you're going to see throughout the game. They are all over the place. This is the Space P90, and it's pretty good. This is the first 7.77 gun that you're more than likely going to find. It's either going to be this or the Eon. This one holds 50 shots in it by default. It's full auto by default, has low damage, but has pretty decent range, has a good rate of fire, has basically no recoil. You can turn this semi-auto, and you can find semi-auto versions of this, and the semi-auto version is actually really good. So I'd put this one C tier. This one's really nice for the start. Does kind of fall off compared to other weapons, mainly like the Beowulf, which you can find fairly early on too. Then we have the modded version. Modded version of the Grendel's pretty good. You can set it to semi-auto, and you can put a scope on it, as well as a suppressor on it. And then it works kind of as a medium range carbine. That's pretty nice. Has super common ammo. So you can buy all the ammo you need. You probably won't need to. Plenty of mercenaries have this and you can pick it up off of them. You're probably going to find a bunch of different legendary versions of the Grendel too, because they are so common. So this one's actually pretty good. I'd put this one up into B tier. It's very nice to have. And then we've got the Kodama, which is another 7.77mm gun. And this one is a nail gun. It's full auto. It always has bleed on it by default, which is great because it deals damage over time to all enemies. Has a pretty good magazine, fires really fast, has nice sights. Enemies that have this absolutely suck because they just eat through your med kits, which is really annoying. But the Kodama is really, really nice. It's probably the second best 7.77 gun besides the Beowulf, and I'd put this one up into A tier. Modded version's even better. You can either have this full auto or you can have it 3-round burst, which is pretty good. You can put a suppressor on it. You can put a scope on it. It seems really weird to suppress a nail gun, but okay. It is really, really good. It's probably the best rate of fire if you just want a large magazine, if you want something that's full auto that fires the 7.77 gun. It works exceptionally well at close and medium range. Doesn't work really well at long range because it doesn't have super long range, but this one's like an easy S tier too. This one's really good. And then we've got the Magpulse. Magpulse is one of the mag weapons that you can get, and it's the semi-automatic rifle. Shoots the 6.5 array, which is good. This and the Magsniper are the only two that actually fire this. Does really high damage per second. It's very easy to shoot. It doesn't have a high rate of fire, but it holds 20 rounds in it, which is pretty good, and it has pretty decent range. This one's all around really nice, S tier. Modded version of it's even better, because then you can put in like depleted uranium rounds and just melt through anything. It's still semi-auto. It has a couple other bonuses that you can put on it. It has even better range then, and this one's just all around better. It would be up into S plus tier. It's just an all-around really nice semi-automatic rifle if you want a good battle rifle to be used in basically any situation. Magshear is another mag weapon, and this is basically the Mag Assault Rifle, where this has a pretty large magazine. It's full auto. You don't need to be that accurate with it because it's just put the square on targets and then hold down the trigger. It's full auto only, so you can't change that. You can eat through ammo pretty quick. It fires the 50 cal MI array. It's this and the Magstorm that uses both of those, so it only has competition with that. This one is pretty nice though. This one is probably a solid A tier. It's really good overall at just clearing up just about anything. Modded version is really nice too. Modded version gets even better. Again, you can put in like depleted uranium rounds into this. There isn't a whole lot extra you can put into it, but that alone makes it even better. Still a large magazine, still a high rate of fire, still works pretty well at close and medium range. That one's going to go up into S tier. The only, I guess, kind of problem with these is the ammo. It can eat through ammo pretty quick, and ammo can be kind of a pain to find, at least on your first run through. On New Game Plus, it's usually not that big of a deal because so many enemies have Magshears, so you can pick up thousands and thousands of rounds. And then we got the Magsniper, the heaviest hitting weapon in the game. This always has a scope on it. This holds 12 shots in it. Does really high damage per shot, although the damage per shot is the fully charged shot. This is another charge up weapon where you have to hold down the trigger, then your person will just start shaking. Then you can fire this and it deals really high damage, the most damage out of any weapon. Usually it's overkill even with the base Magsniper. These are very rare though. You're not going to find them until the very late game, and especially like the advanced versions, although funny enough I've actually found quite a few legendary versions of this. I don't know why. Super expensive to buy. It also shoots the 6.5 the same as the Magpulse, but that isn't such a big deal. It's fairly easy to find that by the time that you're getting this, and this doesn't go through ammo very quick, so this one's up into S tier. Modded version gets even stronger, but all the mods on it kind of feel redundant because it's already kind of overkill just with the regular Magsniper. So having even more damage, having even more armor pen, putting even more bullets in the gun doesn't really matter. It kind of helps if you just want to spam this and use it as a marksman rifle or a battle rifle for hip fire. It's okay, but even then it doesn't really feel that great, and this one's also going to be an S tier. I don't think this is the best sniper in the game. It is the most powerful sniper in the game though, so if you want to one-shot anything, then by all means use it. But I feel like there are better sniper rifles than this, or at least one better sniper rifle than this. Then we got the Magstorm. This one is the big heavy weapon. This is basically the minigun version of the mag weapon. It has the highest rate of fire out of any weapon in the game, holds a lot of shots, deals a lot of damage per second, doesn't do very much damage per shot, but that's how a lot of these weapons work. Absolutely clears through just about any horde of enemies, and it can be really good. So this one's also going to go up into our S tier. Modified version barely changes it. You can put depleted uranium rounds into it, which is really nice, but that's about it. It only has 2 mods in total, so you throw that and like high velocity in it, so your damage drop off isn't that bad, and then you just kill things a little bit more consistently. So this one's also going to go up into S tier. It's nice, but nothing way crazy. If you get different elemental effects on these can be really good. They also sell for a lot. And towards late game, enemies can be carrying these around. If you want to buy one of these, they're very expensive. Same thing goes with like the Magsniper. They are very, very expensive if you need to buy them. Then we've got the AA-99. This is another 11mm gun. This is the last one that we got. And this one's really good too. This one is full auto by default, but it can be semi-auto, and it's pretty common to find semi-auto versions of it. It's actually really common to find modded versions of this. So that's pretty nice. It deals okay damage. It is affected by the skill magazines that increase your total magazine size, so you can actually up the magazine quite a bit with this. And this one just looks cool overall. I'd put this one up into B tier. It's another good 11mm gun. Modded version's even better because it has less mod restrictions than some of the other ones. You can make it semi-auto and still have a large magazine. You can put explosive rounds into this if you'd like, or armor-piercing rounds into it. It's just kind of an all-around upgrade for it, and again, it's not very hard to find modded versions of this, so I'd put this one up into A tier. This one's really nice too. Microgun is going to be one of your first heavy weapons that you find. This one fires the 7.77, same thing as like the Grendel, the Beowulf, and the Kodama that we've talked about. It goes through ammo really fast. It does low damage per shot, but high damage per second. Has a large magazine to it. It's very heavy. This one can be a very awkward weapon. For a heavy weapon, I would say this one's B tier, so long as you have ammo. But if you have any other rifle, or like the Beowulf, the Grendel, or the Kodama, I would say that they are all better than this weapon, because the damage per second that you get out of it just isn't that great. Funny enough, you can put a suppressor on this though. At least, I guess we should talk about that with the modded version. Modded version I'd put up into A tier because it's a little bit better, assuming that you have the ammo again. I still wouldn't say that this is better than something like a Grendel modded out, shot for shot, because it's just, you can get more DPS out of it, but it doesn't really matter a whole lot of the time. The Grendel's just going to be more useful, and it also doesn't weigh a whole bunch. It also doesn't eat through your ammo, so that's nice. But assuming that you're going with a heavy weapons build, this is one of the more practical heavy weapons because ammo is so common and it is so cheap that you can just stock up on tons and tons of it. So that's why I'd put it a little bit ahead, just because if you are doing a heavy weapons run, it is one of your more practical heavy weapons to actually be running around with. Mods for it are actually pretty decent as well, I should say that, because you can put like armor-piercing rounds into this, or you can put a really big magazine into it. Again, you can put a suppressor onto this, so funny enough, it's affected by the stealth perk. Why you're allowed to put a suppressor on a minigun, I have no idea, but cool, I guess. That's kind of nice. I should have also mentioned with the AA-99, you can put a suppressor and a scope on that, so it also counts towards the sniper and stealth perk too. Basically anything that you can do that on, just throw it on there because it gets even more damage, so that's really nice. The Novablast Disruptor is up next. This is our first and only EM weapon specifically. You can change other weapons to be an EM weapon, and this one it's going to go into D tier. I don't really like this weapon that much. The main thing that you're going to be using it for is non-lethal attacks. So to knock out enemies, it's pretty decent, but you can, it's another weapon that you can actually charge up. It doesn't have a great way of showing that it's charged though, where you just hold down the trigger and your person starts shaking. You can kind of see it when you're hip firing it because your crosshairs will get more tight, so you actually know that it is charged. If you're firing it with regular shots, it takes more shots to knock somebody out, so usually you want to go with the charged shots so you can knock somebody out. And then you can either kill them with another weapon, but at that point I feel like snipers just do this job way better, or suppressed shotguns do this job way better. And if you're doing a pacifist run, then this one's actually pretty decent. I don't think it's the best way to knock out enemies though, because the shotty loaded with the EM shells actually knocks out people super fast, and you can just spam it at people, and you can have a pretty large magazine to go along with it, so I feel like even that is kind of better in this role. But this thing's like probably S tier on a pacifist run, It's just if you're not doing a pacifist run, then it's D tier, because I don't think that it's a great use of your ammo or a great use of your time in most instances. Modded version, it just knocks out people a little bit quicker. It's also D tier. You can put a scope on it, so it's affected by the sniper perk. That's kind of cool. But still, 5 shots for a semi-automatic gun that you need to charge up, that knocks people out, doesn't kill them. It can be good for getting different skills up. It can be good for getting melee and unarmed and concealment up. But melee, unarmed are pretty bad to begin with in the game. Concealment's really strong, but that would be kind of the only reason you'd be like using this. And you can kind of use any EM weapon for it. Then we got the Negotiator. This is the other grenade launcher. This one's pretty cool. This one is a rotary grenade launcher that holds 10 rounds. It does high damage per second, splash damage on the rockets. Fairly rare. You don't find these super often. It's very heavy too, so you can't carry around a whole lot of them. Overall, though, this one's actually pretty good. So long as you have 40mm grenades, similar to the Bridger, this one is really, really nice, and I'd put it up into A tier. Modded version, I'd also probably keep into A tier, because modded version doesn't change it that much. You can put a scope on it, so it counts as a sniper weapon, funny enough. But in terms of everything else, it doesn't really change. Hornet rounds are actually pretty bad in this, because it still works well indoors, but it does limit your overall range, and the regular grenades are good enough for most fights. So I usually just keep it as that. It still has the same problem as ammo though. So again, on like a bad day, this thing's probably like C tier just because you're not going to be using it super often. But assuming that you can stockpile a decent amount of 40mm grenades, then yeah, probably A tier. It's pretty good. Coachman's up next. This is the double barrel, and this thing is pretty decent. This is probably the very first shotgun that you're going to find. Does good damage, has good range, has fast follow-ups, because you can fire the second shot super quick. Doesn't have a fast reload. It takes a little while to reload it, so that can be kind of a pain, and if enemies aren't going down quickly, then you might be in trouble with it. Super common though to find. A lot of enemies have this, so finding modified versions of it is not very difficult at all. You can also find it laying around in quite a few areas. This one's a solid B tier. It's another good shotgun. The modded version's even better because this is the best grenade launcher in the game. You put Hornet's Nest rounds into it and you can kill basically anything super, super fast. You can also put a couple other mods onto it, like a shorter barrel, or you can put a reflex sight on it. Honestly, it's just the Hornet Nest rounds that really carry it. And then this one would go up into the S+ tier, just because like it is the best grenade launcher in the game. It's the best for clearing out rooms that way, because it has the most common grenade launcher rounds. The shotgun shells, the caseless shotgun shells, are one of the easiest rounds to find. Enemies always have them. Enemies carry them around all the time. Merchants always have them, so you can just get a whole bunch of this. And this is like the most lightweight, most practical grenade launcher in the game if you're using it for that role. Then we've got the Eon. The Eon pistol is a decent pistol that you can get early on. This is another 7.77mm gun. Sadly, this is probably the weakest of the 7.77mm, unless you're just going with a handgun specific build, because then this is the only gun that will be using that ammo, and it is the most common ammo, so that's kind of nice. It does okay damage. It has a pretty fast rate of fire. It has a fairly fast reload. It feels very, very similar to the 10mm pistol from like Fallout 4, and I'm pretty sure they modeled half the animations off of it, if not all the animations off of it. This thing is like C tier. It's decent enough. The modded version, though, actually gets kind of weaker because this is one of the few weapons that doesn't have an advanced version. It is stuck at refined, so it's a tier lower than that, so it only goes up to a tier 3 weapon rather than a tier 4 weapon, so it has even less damage. Mods are decent enough for it, though. You can put an extended mag on this, you can put a suppressor on it, you can make it have a bit higher rate of fire, and then it's pretty good, and it's overall okay, but since it can't go up to an advanced version, it really falls off hard, even on a pistol-only build. You will be using it then, but this thing's going to go to D tier. There is no reason to use it over any of the other 7.77mm guns unless you are specifically only using a pistol-only run, because anything else is better than this. The Grendel is much better than this, since you can just turn that semi-auto. It's going to have higher damage, it's going to have better mods, it's going to have more bullets in it too, and they're just super common. So the Eon's actually super common too, so finding legendary versions of it isn't very difficult either. And on like the first playthrough and probably the start of New Game Plus, the Eon will still be fairly relevant. It's just once advanced weapons start showing up, and once you start getting them, it falls off super hard. Then up next we have the Equinox. The Equinox is probably one of the first energy weapons that you're going to get associated with in Starfield as well. This is a 20-round semi-automatic energy weapon that actually has pretty good range. To start out with, the Equinox is actually pretty good. And good news is that a lot of the mercenaries, spacers, all that stuff tend to have these, and the ammo is super common too. So this one is going to go up into our C tier. This one's actually really good early on. However, later on with the modded versions, it actually falls off pretty heavily, because this, just like the Eon that we talked about just a second ago, does not have an advanced version. It only goes up to a tier 3 version. So it's going to be weaker than average, and fully modded out, this doesn't really excel at anything, especially when other weapons like the Orion are definitely showing up at this point, that uses the same ammo as it and are just better than it all the way around. So modded version, gonna go right into D tier. The EM version, since you can turn this into a full auto EM weapon and you can knock out enemies fairly quick, does actually have some purpose. I do like it a little bit more than something like the Nova Disruptor, but it's not that much better. It just knocks out things a little bit quicker, and it's still not the best EM version of a weapon, because something like the Shotty is pretty good at that. So this is like another C tier. It's okay as a non-lethal weapon. If you're going with a pacifist run, you're probably going to use this, but if you're not, then you're probably going to forget about the Equinox once like New Game Plus starts showing up, or even towards the end of the regular game. And then we got the Novalight Pistol. This one, funny enough, is not non-lethal. This is the first particle pistol that you can get, and one of only 2 particle pistols. This one does really high damage. It has a fairly fast rate of fire. It has a fairly quick reload. They're fairly rare though. You don't find them super often, but you can buy them. You can actually buy them right at the start if you want to go to Neon and buy them from Ryujin. You can even buy the unique version there, which sadly has like the Space Adept effect, which is just bad, but can be a pretty good pistol. It has a fairly fast rate of fire too. It's all around really nice. This one's going to go up into A tier. Modded version's even better. You can put some decent mods on this to where you can put Annihilator rounds into this, I believe. So it does pretty high damage there. Has an even faster rate of fire. It's just all around really good then. It's actually a really nice handgun, and this one would go up into S tier. It's one of the better handguns in the game, and just very consistent. It's also just one of my favorite in terms of looks and feel. I love the reload animation on this too. I love how the slide just goes forward and then you reload it and the slide comes back. Seems a little bit strange, but it's very nice. Then we got the 1911, or the Old Earth handgun. This one is okay. You can actually find these pretty early on. 1911s do decent damage. They have a fast rate of fire. They hold an okay amount of shots. They're all around pretty decent. I would put this into B tier. Main problem is going to be finding 45 ACP because it's extremely rare, and merchants just like don't sell it like ever. So it's a pain to find ammo for this, but assuming you have ammo, it can be pretty good. Modded version is actually not going to go any higher. It's going to stay into B tier as well because mods don't help it that much. Armor piercing rounds is kind of nice, a suppressor is nice, and that's about it. That's the only real advantage that you get with it. So if you have the sneak perk, you can do more damage, and that is kind of good. You still have the limitation of ammo, and the XM2311 beats this one out in both terms of regular 1911 and in terms of modded version. So I would say go with that if you can, but the regular 1911 is fine enough, assuming that you can find enough ammo for it. Orion is pretty good, and this one is basically 2 laser rifles taped together into one gun. This is semi-auto. It does pretty high damage. The lasers can kind of go all over the place if you're moving. If you're sitting still, they're actually pretty accurate, but if you're running, then lasers start going everywhere, and it's kind of annoying to fire this. They always come with a scope, which is good, so the sniper perk works for this. And the Orion's actually pretty decent. I'd put this A tier. It's probably going to be your go-to weapon for an energy weapon run throughout the majority of the game until you start getting towards the end game where you can get like an inflictor and stuff. Or if you're going on like New Game Plus, this one's still going to be pretty good because the ammo is super common for it, so that's nice. Modded version's even better. Modded version actually gets quite a bit better to where it gets even more damage. This thing can have a really large magazine too because it's also affected by skill magazines. You could even put it up higher. I think with mine I could go up to like already like 90 rounds in it if I wanted, but that's way overkill for a semi-auto gun like this. It's pretty accurate. The scope on it is really nice. It's affected by like half a dozen perks. This is going to go up into S tier. Again, it's probably going to be like your go-to for an energy weapon build. Even into the very end game where you can have all the energy weapons and have a decent amount of ammo. This is the weapon that I would consider as the best for the energy weapon ammo for quite a while because it shoots a fairly common round, fires the same round as the Equinox and the Arc Welder, but is way better than both of those, and it's not competing with anything else. So yeah, S tier is really nice. Then we got the Rattler. This is a semi-automatic pistol revolver handgun deal. It's kind of weird. This one fires the 27 caliber round. It does okay damage. It does okay damage per second. Has a surprising amount of recoil for such a small pistol. Holds a decent amount of shots. It's all around not that good, but it's okay. You'll probably use it at the start of the game, and you'll use it in a handgun only run, but this is going to go into D tier. Modified version honestly doesn't get that much better because this is another weapon that does not have an advanced version. It only goes up to a tier 3 weapon, which is just sad. Modded can work a little bit better because you can have an extended mag, so it holds like 20 something rounds in it, and you can put a binary trigger on it, so it's basically a submachine gun at that point. And it's okay then. It's okay for clearing up stuff. The 27 caliber round is one of the more common rounds in the game. It's a very cheap round. Basically every merchant sells it and they sell a lot of it. But this still just isn't that strong of a gun, and I'd also put it into D tier. Then we've got the Sidestar. This is also not a very strong weapon. This is like the Space Glock. It shoots fairly quick. It doesn't do that much damage. Holds a lot of bullets in it, which is good. So that's kind of nice. I would consider this an upgrade over something like the Rattler, since it does use the same rounds as it, but it's a little bit more convenient to be firing. Not that much more of an upgrade though. So this one's going to go into like C tier. Modded version has the same problem as the Rattler, where it also does not have an advanced version. It is stuck at a tier 3 weapon, so it's weaker and it already does low damage, which isn't really that great. It works okay for a spam fire weapon. This is affected by skill magazines to up your magazine size. This is semi-auto only. I think if you could turn it full auto, it'd actually be better, because then at least you could put like a very large magazine in this and just spray it at enemies. But as it is, the semi-auto is okay enough. It'll be okay for the start of like a New Game Plus run, but falls off heavy after that. So also another C tier. I think it's a little bit better than like the Eon or the Rattler in terms of practical use, but not by that much. Then we got the Varun Inflictor. This is one of the strongest weapons in the game. This is your one and only particle rifle. This has 20 rounds in it. It deals really high damage, really high damage, has long range. It's very strong overall. It's very nice. This one's going to go up into S tier. It's one of the best weapons just in the game by default. The modified version is crazy because this one gets even stronger. Since this is a particle weapon, it's affected by so many skills because it's affected by the rifle skill since it's a rifle. The marksman skill because it's semi-auto, ballistics because it is a ballistic weapon, energy weapons because it is an energy weapon, particle weapons because it's a particle weapon. It's just like every perk just goes for it, so it gets even more damage. This thing has a crazy amount of damage. You can put the Annihilator rounds into it, which just spread damage out and get you so much damage. You can put a scope on this too, so it's affected by the sniper perk as well. When I had a fully modded version of this, it was doing like 1400 damage a shot, and that was pretty crazy. That wasn't even building all damage on it. That was just building part damage and part quality of life stuff on it. So yeah, this thing's going to go right up to S tier. This is probably the strongest weapon overall at everything in the game. It's between this and like the Big Bang. There are two of the best weapons at everything. This has better effective range because it has a scope and it has less damage drop off, but the Big Bang can have more burst damage. So like those two are competing for the best weapon in slot, I would say. Then we got the Star Shard. Another really good gun and probably one of the best handguns in the game. This one is a particle pistol. This one deals high damage per shot, has a pretty quick rate of fire, has a large magazine. It's overall really nice. This one's also going to go up into S tier. It's the like premier handgun that you want to go for in a handgun run, and it's one of the best sidearms if you just want to be carrying that around. The modded version is even better and would go up to S+. I think this is the best handgun in the game. You can turn it into like a little pocket shotgun that actually has pretty good range. You could turn it into a longer range pistol to where it's actually competing with something like the Razorback in terms of range. Has even higher damage. Reloads pretty quick, fires pretty quick. Once you put overclocked on this too, it fires actually really fast, so you don't have to worry about the kind of slower rate of fire that the normal one has. When I say really fast, it's really fast compared to what it was previously. It's not super quick compared to all handguns, but it is fast enough, and it's just one of the best handguns in the game. And then we've got the Lawgiver. Lawgiver is the first sniper type weapon that you're going to find, potentially. It's more of a battle rifle. You can put scopes on this, but it doesn't come with a scope by default. This is a semi-auto rifle that has a low rate of fire. It does good damage, at least at the start, and it's kind of just okay all the way around. I'd put this one into C tier. It's decent, but nothing way crazy. The modded version is a bit better because you can put a scope on it, which is nice. You can put a suppressor on it, so it does work as a dedicated sniper rifle. The main issue is that this is going to get outcompeted by the old earth hunting rifle basically as soon as you get it, since this one just has faster follow-up shots. Even though it doesn't have as much damage per shot, the damage per second is way better than this. The main thing that this has going for it is that it has common ammo, so you can find Lawgivers fairly early on and they're pretty decent. But then when the next rifle shows up it's using the same ammo as it, it just completely outcompetes it in every way. So this one's going to go to B tier. We got the hard target as our last weapon, and the hard target is probably the best sniper rifle in the game. It does really high damage per shot, really high damage per second, holds 5 shots, although that can be upped with an extended magazine to 10, which is really good. This thing always comes with a scope on it, which is nice, and it shoots the 50 cal round, so it's super common, but it does really high damage. This thing's going right up into S tier, and then the unique version of it, or the modded version of it, is going to go right up into S plus tier. I think this is the best sniper rifle in the game. I would say it's better than something like the Magsniper, even though the Magsniper has more damage than it. It doesn't really matter once you get up to like the advanced versions, because they're both going to one-shot basically anything, especially if you're using them in a sniper role where you're sneaking. Then the hard target is going to do tons of damage anyway, and it can have faster follow-up shots. I would also say it has better mods, since you can have a suppressor on it, and you can put a different scope on there if you'd like. Both can have long scopes, which is nice if you want that. It actually has quite a few really good options for it. The extended mag is really nice. It's really, really strong overall. That's where I would put all of the weapons in Starfield, and all of my reasoning behind them. There is a lot of weapons in Starfield. The modded versions do change up the weapons, usually quite a bit, some of them not as much, and the majority of the weapons I would say are pretty decent in Starfield. Some of them stand out a lot, like the Varun weapons are really, really good. The Big Bang, the Beowulf, there are some real standout weapons that are really nice. I'll probably do a couple more lists about Starfield, specifically their weapons like top 10 best, top 10 worst weapons, even though you can probably tell just from looking at this where they're going to be. But just for people that like that style of video better and want something a little bit more condensed than this particular list. So thank you guys so very much for watching this. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Tell me your thoughts on the weapons in Starfield down below. Tell me where I was wrong, where I was right, wherever you feel, whatever it might be. Remember that all these tier lists are super subjective, so don't always take this. And if you like a particular weapon, especially in a game like this, you don't need like the most meta weapon. Just pick whatever you enjoy using the most and use that, because really, with any of the Bethesda games, you can get away with using just about anything. I have plenty of challenge runs that I've done in these games and just up on the channel that you can get away with a lot of shenanigans in these games. Thank you guys so very much for watching it once again. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye, everybody.